Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to my channel, Beauty of Language. So, today we are starting one of the most important chapters of class 10th history, and that is the first war of Indian independence, 1857. So, now I know what you're thinking. History can feel boring, correct? And sometimes it sounds like a long list of dates and causes. Okay, but don't worry, in this video I'll keep it as interesting and as easy as possible and only to the point things. Okay, no extra information, no extra baate idhar udhar. So you can understand, revise and remember this chapter properly without it putting you to sleep. So many students think this war happened suddenly because of one reason, but that is not true. The Enfield rifle issue was only the final spark. Okay, so the real fire had been building up for years because of British policy. So in this video, we will cover these topics from the chapter. Now, before starting, I'd just like to mention that if you are a student who is going to appear for history and civics exam in 2026, then you can skip the military causes and socio-economic causes because these two topics were already asked in the previous year, that is in boards 2025. And also the topics that I'm going to discuss, I have made shorts for each of them. All of them have been uploaded on my channel. You can watch it after you finish it. So you'll get an idea of how much you understood the chapter, okay? Now for important questions, do visit my website, beautyoflanguage.in. Now talking about the political causes of the first war of independence. So before 1857, the British were not simply governing India. They were steadily destroying Indian political power. One kingdom after another was taken away. Indian rulers felt threatened, insulted, and cheated. Okay, people also felt that their traditional rulers were becoming helpless. And also one more thing, children, that I'm going to use a few words which are exactly as it is there in the book, like annexation, okay, proclamation, all these things, so that you can use exactly in your those words in your answers. It is better. See, this is not English literature or English grammar that you will use fancy vocabulary or exact words, but I suggest that use it. It's better. Okay. So the first was after the Battle of Plassey in 1757. The East India Company, it stopped acting like just a trading company. Okay, it started acting like a ruler. So their territorial power increased rapidly. They expanded in three main ways. First, by fighting wars, by making rulers accept the subsidiary alliance, and by using the doctrine of lapse. And sometimes they took kingdoms on the excuse that the ruler was incompetent and the area was suffering from misrule. Okay. Now, next, the British expanded the empire through a series of wars. So these wars, they crushed Indian powers and increased fear among the Indian rulers. Battle of Buxar in 1764 made the British masters of Bihar, Bengal and Odisha. Anglo-Mysore wars from 1767 to 1799 helped them annex most territories of Mysore. After the Third Anglo-Maratha War from 1817 to 1818, they took over the Peshwa's territory and also Marathas territories north and south of the Narmada River. Now, after the Second Anglo-Sikh War in 1849, Punjab was annexed. So the British also annexed Sindh, territories of Assam and regions like Arakan, Tenasserim and Pegu in Myanmar. So step by step, Indians could see that the British were aiming for complete control. Next one is subsidiary alliance. So this is one of the most important political causes because it was introduced by Lord Wellesley, and the aim was to expand British control without direct war. Now, if an Indian ruler accepted this alliance, he had to keep British troops in his kingdom and pay for their maintenance, accept a British resident at his court, not employ any other European without British permission. So all these meant that the ruler, they lost real freedom. Okay, British soldiers were inside his territory and decisions were now controlled by whom? It was controlled indirectly by the British. So people, they also suffered because taxes increased to pay for the British troops. Awadh was the first to enter into this alliance through the Treaty of Allahabad. Next one is Doctrine of Lapse. Now again, the children who are going to appear for 2026 boards exam, you can skip this part because Doctrine of Lapse was already asked last year, okay, in 2025. So this is the most asked political cause. So remember it clearly that it was introduced by Lord Dalhousie. According to this doctrine, if a ruler, he died without a natural heir, bina waris ke, so the British would annex the kingdom even if the ruler adopted a son. The British often refused to accept him as the next ruler, okay. For example, Anand Rao, the adopted son of the ruler of Jhansi, was not recognized as the lawful successor, and as a result, Jhansi was annexed by the Britishers, and also many other states like Nagpur, Jaipur, Sambalpur, Udaipur, and Satara. For this policy, it broke trust completely because adoption was an accepted Indian tradition at that time. Okay. Next is pretext of misrule. So Awadh was not annexed under the doctrine of lapse. It was actually annexed in 1856 on the excuse of misrule. Okay. So this was a huge political mistake by the British because Awadh was large, it was rich and culturally very important. So when the Nawab was removed, the entire administrative system, it broke nobles, officials, soldiers and dependents, they lost their positions and income. Common people also suffered due to disturbance, increased control and also pressure. So Awadh became a major center of resentment, anger among the people. Next is disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah Zafar. So we know Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor, right? So the British, what did they do? They insulted the Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, and weakened the Mughal position. They treated him like a pensioner, not an emperor, okay? His name was removed from the coins. In 1849, Lord Dalhousie announced that his successors would not be allowed to use the Red Fort as a palace. Now, in 1856, Lord Canning announced that after Bahadur Shah Zafar's death, his successors would not be allowed to use the imperial titles, the royal titles. This is not just personal disrespect by the Britishers. In fact, it was a message that Indian political authority meant nothing under the British rule. Next is Nana Sahib's grievance. So what happened was that Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II. So he was denied his father's pension by the British. And also he was forced to live in Kanpur away from his family seat in Pune. Now this, it created deep anger in him. He used his inherited wealth to send emissaries to different parts of the world to spread awareness about British policies and to build support against the British. Okay? Emissaries are the diplomatic representation which is sent on a particular mission or special mission. Basically, they are the diplomats. Okay? Next is absentee sovereignty. So, absentee sovereignty means that India was being ruled from England, which is 1,000 miles away. Okay? Now, decisions about the Indian rulers, Indian resources, and Indian people were taken by outsiders who did not belong to this land. Okay? So, earlier what happened? The rulers like the Mughals, they had settled in India and used the resources here. Okay? But the Britishers, what they were doing, they were taking the wealth away to England. Now, this made Indians feel that they were being ruled by the strangers for the benefit of the strangers. So, that is all related to the political causes that led to the First War of Independence. Now let us understand the economic reasons, okay? So before 1857, the Britishers, they were not only taking the political control, they were also draining India's wealth and they were weakening India's economy. Okay, so this made peasants, artisans, and even landlords angry. So first reason is the exploitation of economic resources. So the Britishers used India mainly for their own benefit. So India was turned into an economic colony. India became a supplier of raw materials like cotton, tea, indigo, raw silk, and even food grains. So these were very short in supply in Britain. So India was forced to export them. Now, because of this large export, what happened is that there was scarcity in India and the prices it increased. Now, India, on the other hand, was made to accept ready-made British goods at low rates. Now, at the same time, Indian handmade goods, they faced high import duties in England. So, overall, what happened that this destroyed Indian industries and made India a market for British manufactured goods. Understood? Next is the drain of wealth. It means the transfer of wealth from India to England without proper return. Now, till the Battle of Plassey in 1757, European companies, they bought Indian raw materials by paying money. Now, after the Battle of Plassey, what happened? The Britishers, they used Indian revenue and power to buy goods cheaply and they stopped paying properly. So what happened is India's money and wealth it flowed to England and India got no adequate, no proportionate return. Next is decay of cottage industries and handicrafts. So Indian industries, especially cotton and silk, declined badly because British machine-made goods were cheaper. Indian goods faced heavy duties in Britain and British goods entered India at low duty, and Indian artisans also lost their traditional patrons, okay, like princes, chiefs, zamindars. As a result, what happened that artisans lost work, spinning and weaving declined, and also because of all this, unemployment increased. Next was economic decline of peasantry. What happened under this was that the British land revenue system, it ruined peasants. Taxes were very high, collection methods were very harsh, and peasants were pushed into debt. So many peasants, what they had to do was they had to borrow from money lenders, sell land and become landless. Now this affected cultivation and it led to severe famines. Famines, you understand, no? Sukha. Next is inhuman treatment of indigo cultivators. So indigo trade was highly profitable for the British. Peasants, they were forced to grow indigo, okay? They were forced to grow indigo in the fields that were meant for food crops. Now, if they resisted, what happened? They were treated very cruelly. Their crops were destroyed, their cattle were carried away as a punishment to them. This created deep hatred in rural areas towards the British government. Next, British policies created poverty because of high taxation and exploitation, just as I discussed now. So, as a result, there were four major famines in 1765 and 1857, along with drought and natural calamities. So, people were already suffering and became ready to rebel against the Britishers. Next, decline of aristocracy. So traditional landholding classes like talukdars, zamindars, they were completely weakened. Okay, confiscations and new land rules reduced their power. Confiscation means to zabt karna, okay, which we call zabt karna. Okay, and new land rules reduced their power. Many estates were sold to merchants and money lenders. Now the Inam Commission in 1852 resumed और confiscated, जब्त कर लिया गया around 20,000 states. Now this drove many landed families into poverty and it did not benefit the peasants who still suffered under heavy land revenue. Next, there was growing unemployment. So due to a decline of handicrafts and rural distress, many people they became jobless And ultimately, they were angry with all these things going on. Also, when traditional rulers were removed, so scholars, preachers, they lost patronage and became poor. Patronage, you understand, no? They are kept in the courts of the this rulers, and they are paid. So thousands of soldiers and officials, they also became unemployed because the British excluded Indians from high posts, and this created bitterness among many educated and skilled Indians. Now, moving on to the military causes. First of all, there was ill treatment of Indian soldiers. So, the East India Company, they built its empire in India with the help of Indian soldiers. But then they treated them very badly. Indian soldiers were poorly paid, ill-fed, badly housed, and also British military authorities, they also hurt the sentiments by forbidding sepoys from wearing castes or sectarian marks like beards or turban. So this showed a disregard for their feelings. Next, General Service Enlistment Act in 1856. See, according to a traditional belief, it was a taboo for a Brahmin to cross the seas. But the British Parliament passed the General Service Enlistment Act in 1856, and this act forced Indian soldiers to accept overseas duty. Even though it did not apply to existing soldiers, it created fear of losing caste and it increased resentment towards them. Next is a larger proportion of Indians in the British Army. So the number of British troops in India was never very large compared to Indian soldiers. So the ratio of British to Indian troops always remained low. So Lord Dalhousie recommended increasing British soldiers, but it could not happen easily. So this situation made it easier for Indian soldiers to gather courage because they were large in numbers. Next, also there was bleak prospects, means very low chances of promotion, because all higher posts in employment, it was reserved by whom? It was reserved for the British. Now, even Indian soldiers who were already in higher positions could not rise above the rank of a Subedar. So this blocked their career growth completely and created bitterness because Indians fought for the British, but they were denied respect and also advancement, that is promotion. Next is deprivation of allowances. So the extension of British dominion, it affected you understand of Sipahi, which we say. Sepoys' service conditions. After annexation of ours, soldiers were required to serve in areas that were far away from their homes. It was okay, but it was done without being given any extra allowances like foreign service. No, there was no foreign service allowance, no additional bhatta. Okay. Another grievance was that the Post Office Act, which was passed in 1854, this act, it withdrew the privilege of free postage which were enjoyed by sepoys. Okay. Next is faulty distribution of troops. So places like Delhi and Allahabad were very strategic, but British troops were held elsewhere. So at the same time, England was busy in multiple wars like the Persian-Iranian War, the Crimean War, the Chinese War. So Indian soldiers began to feel that the safety of the British Empire in India depended heavily on them. As we already knew that in the there were more Indians than the Britishers. So this gave them confidence to strike at a very suitable time. Next was poor performance of British troops. So Indian soldiers saw that the British had suffered major reverses in wars. Okay, so this broke the myth that that the Britishers were unbeatable. Okay, the loss in the war, it increased the belief that British power could be challenged. Okay. Next was lower salaries. So the wages of Indian soldiers were inadequate to support their families. So British soldiers received more than 8 times the salary of Indian soldiers. Now what happened that this created, obviously it will create strong anger and a sense of injustice among the Indian soldiers. Next, there was a Santhal uprising. It showed that if Indians fought with determination, British rule could be shaken. Okay, it helped destroy the belief that the British army was invincible. Now moving ahead to the socio-religious causes. So there was interference with the social customs. The British government, it tried to interfere in Indian social life through reforms. That means through changes. So many Indians, what they felt that these reforms, it was like an attack on their religion and their traditions. So even those who supported reforms feared that the British were trying to change the society by force. So the important reforms were abolition of sati, which was done in 1829, Widow Remarriage Act, which was done in 1856. And as a result of this, suspicion spread that the British wanted to weaken Indian religions and customs. Next was apprehensions about modern innovations. So people were suspicious of British introduced modern systems because they were new and completely unfamiliar to them, like railways, telegraph. So there were even rumors that these innovations were being used to destroy religions and to mix castes and to control Indians more strongly. So it created fear and misunderstanding increased among the masses, and we know that at that time caste system was very strongly rooted in India at that time. Okay. Next is policy of racial discrimination. So the British behaved as if they were a superior race, okay, and Indians were inferior. So Indians were treated with contempt, hatred, insults, unfair behavior. So this humiliation was felt by all sections of the society, and this increased hatred for British rule. Next, there was corruption in administration. So the company officials, they were considered corrupt. Okay, the British officials were concerned mainly about making money. The common man was cheated, looted, tortured. As a result, people completely lost faith in the British justice and their administration. Next is the oppression of the poor. Oppression, okay, social, which we say exploitation. So the judicial and administrative system allowed the rich to oppress the poor. So the poor suffered from flogging, torture, imprisonment, heavy burdens like rent, land revenue, interest on debt. So as a result, there was growing anger among the masses, and it made them ready to support the revolt. Next is the activities of missionaries. So the British allowed and supported Christian missionaries, because missionaries, they openly criticized Indian religions and tried to spread Christianity. So this created fear that the British aimed to convert Indians into Christians. So the fear was stronger among both Hindus as well as Muslims. Next, taxing religious places. Now what it did, that religious sentiments of the people were hurt when taxes were imposed on temples, mosques and other religious places. So Indians, they felt that the British were disrespecting their faiths, in which they were obviously doing that. Okay. Next, fear regarding Western education. So the British introduced Western education and they promoted English. Now the Indians, they feared that this would weaken traditional Hindu and Islamic learning. It will reduce respect for religious teachers like the Pandits, the Maulvis, and many even believed that Western education was meant to spread Christianity and to destroy Indian religions. Next is Law of Property, which was named as Religious Disabilities Removal Act. So the Britishers, they passed this Religious Disabilities Removal Act in 1850. Now it allowed converts to Christianity to inherit property. Now Hindus feared that this would encourage conversion and break family and religious unity. So this was seen as an indirect method to promote Christianity. Now, we discussed all the political causes, military causes, socio-religious causes, economic causes. Now we will move on to the final spark. So by 1857, anger had already built up due to all these reasons which I just mentioned. But the immediate cause, it came from the army. Okay. What happened is that in 1856, the Britishers, they decided to replace the old musket, which was known as Brown Bess, with a new Enfield rifle. Now, the main issue here was that the cartridge loading process. So, to load the Enfield rifle, a soldier had to bring the cartridge to the mouth and bite off the top greased paper with their mouth. Okay. Now, a rumor spread that the grease was made from cow and pig fat. Now, cow is sacred to Hindus and pig is forbidden to Muslims. So, the sepoys felt that this was a deliberate attempt to hurt their religions and destroy caste and faith. Okay. So, this caused fear and anger in the army, and soon it became open rebellion. Okay. We already knew that. Just now we studied that how there was fear among the Indians that Britishers are going to convert their religions to Christianity. Okay, they are hurting the sentiments of the people of India by starting new laws, new acts. Okay, now this thing, it caused an immediate effect to already existing reasons that they had to hate Britishers. Now, what were the consequences of the first war of independence? Now, see, the revolt. So, the revolt was there. The Britishers fought against the Indians. Obviously, the Indians were not able to fight the British. That also we will see in the drawbacks of the first war of independence. So, what happened? The revolt, it was completely suppressed. Okay. But then it changed the system of administration completely. Okay, there was end of East India Company's rule. The revolt, it proved that the company could not govern India safely. So the British government decided to take diet control. So in 1858, the British Parliament passed the Government of India Act. Okay, now there was key changes made, and they were: power shifted from the East India Company to the British Crown. Okay. Board of Control and Court of Directors were abolished. A new post was created, that was Secretary of State for India, assisted by an Indian Council. Okay. Try to understand very clearly. It is very important. Governor General became the Viceroy, the personal representative of the Crown. And Lord Canning, he became the first Viceroy under this new system. Then there was policy of divide and rule. So after 1857, the Britishers, they realized that unity was dangerous for them. So they followed the famous divide and rule. They encouraged Hindu-Muslim differences. They divided people on caste and regional lines, which was very easy to do. They favored some groups and suppressed others. They used princes and landlords as allies to prevent mass unity. Okay? Allies, you understand, no? They used the princes, the local rulers, to work for them in order to spread this division among the people so that they could rule properly and easily. Then there was racial antagonism. After 1857, the British became more suspicious and they became racially arrogant. Okay, Indians, they were treated as a subject race. There was strict social distance between the British and the Indians. There were discriminations and insults. Everything increased. This created deep bitterness between Indians and the British. Next is about the foreign policy. The British followed an expansionist foreign policy to use India as a base in Asia and Africa. So Indians resented this because India was dragged into British conflicts unnecessarily. For example, India, it had to fight wars with neighbors like Nepal and Burma. Okay, Indian taxpayers had to bear the heavy cost of all these wars that they had to fight with the neighbors. Then there were religious changes. So the British announced a policy of non-interference in religious affairs. Okay, religious affairs, customs, traditions of Indians, and it was mainly done to avoid another revolt. Next is economic exploitation. It continued even after 1857. Economic exploitation, it continued. India remained a colonial economy, exporting raw materials and importing finished goods. Salaries and allowances of Secretary of State, India Council members, civil servants and military officers remained a major drain of India's wealth. Rural and artisan industries continued to collapse. Indians had to pay heavy interests and dividends on British capital that was invested in India. Now, princely states were treated differently. After 1857, the Britishers realized that princes could help them, the local rulers. Okay, so what did they do? They avoided removing princes easily and kept them loyal to the crown. कि भाई आप रूल करो, आपको हम रूल करने देते हैं, but then you stay loyal to us. Okay. Next is reorganization of the army. So the revolt, where did it start? It started in the army. So the army was completely reorganized. European troops were increased. The ratio was changed to ensure that European dominance, artillery and key weapons, the important weapons, were kept under control of the Europeans only. Recruitment was done carefully so as to reduce unity. Then caste and community divisions were encouraged in regiments. Soldiers were kept away from newspapers and nationalist writings. The aim of doing these things was completely clear, and that was to prevent another united revolt. Now, after 1857, the crown came with an important announcement to calm Indians and win their loyalty. Queen Victoria's proclamation was issued on 1st November 1858 and it was made public at Allahabad. So, what were the promises included in the proclamation? First of all, no interference in religious beliefs and practices, equal protection of law for all the subjects, general pardon to those who participated in the rebellion, except those guilty of murdering British subjects, efforts for industrial development, promotion of utility workers for material and moral progress. I hope you have understood till here. Now moving on to the next topic, that is drawbacks of the First War of Independence. What were the drawbacks that led to the suppression of such an important rebel? Okay. See, first of all, there was no central leadership or unified plan. Different centers acted independently. There was no single command, no common aim except that anti-British feeling. Okay, the whole planning was disorganized. Then there was strong British leadership and support. The East India Company had strong officers and they fought till help arrived from abroad. There was limited spread and support. The revolt did not spread strongly to South India and many parts of Eastern and Western India. Sindh and Rajasthan, they remained quiet. Nepal helped the Britishers only. Bombay and Madras armies, they remained loyal to the British. तो कोई बचा ही नहीं, तो लड़ाइयाँ कौन करता? Okay, a British had this superiority in terms of men, money and material. They had trained army, their army was disciplined, they had modern weapons and they had better communication. Now the rebels, they lacked funds, they lacked transport, there was no modern weapons and there was no organized supply. The whole planning was only not organized. So how will they get the supplies in an organized way, right? Some sections opposed the uprising and some section did not, because moneylenders and big merchants of Mumbai, Kolkata and Chennai, they disliked the revolts, because some zamindars of Bengal, they were loyal to the British. Some educated Indians also did not support it. Why? Because they believed that British rule would modernize India. Okay, that is the reason they did not support the rebellion. So students, this is the chapter in a complete and simple way. I hope it was easy for you to understand. If any doubt, any difficulty, do ask me in the comment section. If you like the video, hit the like button, share and subscribe the channel. Stay tuned to know about the growth of nationalism in detail in my next video. I'll see you. Bye bye. Take care.